Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had a subscriber ask me a question yesterday in the video where I was discussing Brandon Carter and the squatting everyday thing. And I mentioned I'm back to doing a squatting everyday program again myself. They asked, wouldn't you overtrain if you do that? So let me put my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skilling my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. No, not necessarily, because you need to remember there's a lot of factors going on with something like this, and actually, for people who don't have really strenuous physical jobs, if you only have one training session a week and you manage everything correctly, you're very likely to not overtrain if you're only squatting once a day. Meaning if you're doing like a 6-day-a-week squat program, but you're out of the gym in an hour, hour and a half, no, you're probably not going to, as long as you follow some simple rules. And what people need to remember, all this stuff originally came from the idea of the Bulgarians, who were doing heavy maxes up to 3 times a day. So you were talking about 18 max effort training sessions a week. Granted, they were on drugs. Obviously drugs involved, obviously genetically selected, and obviously this was their full-time job. Meaning they didn't have jobs outside of the gym. And that was a big part of what their coach was doing, was that by having them in the gym so much they didn't have to worry. He didn't want them to have other lives, because they were professional athletes training for the Olympics. And that worked out very, very well. Now, obviously, for most people, your lifestyle, if you have a job or you go to school or anything else, 3 heavy training sessions a day is not going to happen. You're going to very, very quickly find yourself overtraining at that point. But what people need to remember, overtraining is a chronic situation in the body. It's not something that you can do in 2 weeks' time. You have to build up to it, and it takes a while to happen. You have to overreach chronically for a period of time before you overtrain. And once you overtrain, obviously you are in trouble. It is never a good thing. But as far as squatting every day, no, not at all. What this does, it allows for a lot of frequency, and what it allows mainly is a lot of intensity. And that's the whole point. In other words, you can get away with, due to recovery, because you're coming in and you're squatting and you're not squatting again for 24 hours before your next really heavy single or double or triple. It allows you to handle a heavier weight for more total reps through the week. And that's kind of the point. And you're kind of greasing the groove on the motor pattern, because you're squatting 6 days a week. You're reinforcing the motor pattern over and over and over while getting sufficient volume for adaptation. Now, the whole thing to remember is that there's a lot of factors to overtraining. I would say for someone who can't get at least 8 hours of sleep consistently every single night, this sort of program is not going to work for you. You've got to do, though, is keep within your recovery ability. And that means a lot of that's going to be things like avoiding missed lifts. And yes, people say, but the Bulgarians did miss lifts. That's true, they did. They did miss lifts all the time. The difference, though, is that they didn't have jobs. Those of you who have a life outside of the gym, you're going to want to be conservative. What I would recommend is be conservative in your other lifts. Lifts that are really taxing, like deadlifts, you need to be very, very careful how you incorporate these in. Perfect example, because for me, I push, pull, and press, right? That's what I do every day on this sort of system. But I squat first. The other stuff is secondary. I squat, then I do some sort of press, and then whatever I have left is used towards a pull. And I only deadlift once a week. You won't see me doing rack pulls. You won't see me doing block pulls. Any of this stuff that's going to put additional load on the spine has no place in a daily squatting program. It will bury you. Deadlifting heavy more than once a week will probably bury you too. You might be able to get away with adding some deficit deadlifts or speed deadlifts for a second day. You've got to be very, very careful with these heavy explosive pulls from the floor if you're going to squat every day. That's where you start doing stuff like more power cleans, because they're lighter weight, they're easier to recover from. Pendlay rows, right? So for me, my additional pulls are pendlay rows, weighted chin-ups. That's what I do for pulling. And again, one peak set of those also. I'll probably rotate power cleans back in soon. This is where you could add your Olympic lifts and things also, depending upon what you're doing. But the whole point is that you've got to really manage the fatigue of other stuff. You can't come in and do a bunch of high rep stuff behind it. Reps actually bury recovery more than anything. High volume training is what buries recovery more than anything, particularly as we get older. So again, managing the fatigue of your other lifts is going to be very, very critical. Very critical. Particularly things like deadlifts, or even worse, partial deadlifts of any type that put even more compressive force on the spine. Meaning, if you can deadlift 600, you're probably not going to get buried coming in and deadlifting, 530, 540, 550 for reps once a week. One heavy set. You start doing 700-pound rack pulls, 800-pound rack pulls, you're going to have a problem. You start trying to deadlift 600 pounds 2 or 3 times a week, you're going to have a problem. So the whole point here is realizing that the squat is first and then all your other stuff behind it, and managing your total volume of your other lifts. And I get away with that pretty well, even though I'm older. Because I get enough sleep, I'm able to get by with 3 big lifts every day. But I also very restrict the amount of deadlifting I'm doing right now. And I'll have to work around that eventually, because my deadlifts are really going to stagnate on this if I'm not careful. That's okay, I'll use other lifts to build them up during this time. But back to the point of managing your overall fatigue, managing your psychological arousal. This is where stuff like Matt Perryman comes in handy with his book, Squat Every Day. Really a fantastic read, worth the read if you get a hold of it. It'll help you if you're going to do something like this. Managing your fatigue here comes down to, again, managing your total squat volume, managing your RPE on the squats, and minimizing psychological arousal. And the latter one, I would say your key to that is going to be very selective in how you stimulate yourself. In other words, a little bit of black coffee is fine. I usually have a couple cups of black coffee before I train in the morning, if I do it in the morning. No music. No music. No pre-workouts. That's been noted with all of this. That is what's going to push you into an overtrained state faster. That is going to cause you recovery abilities if you're actually trying to squat heavy every day. Because here's the thing. We're simply trying to recruit maximum motor units and ingrained skills and get used to squatting heavy all the time. You're not trying to push it so hard that it takes you 72 hours to recover. And that's what cranking Slayer up, using nose torque, using a pre-workout, that's what it does. You don't need that level of psychological arousal. It's been noted in the data that psychological arousal increases recovery time even when the exact same weight is lifted for the exact same reps by the same lifter. All right, it will impact your recovery. Our goal is to simply come in and hit a calm max, whether it's a 1 rep, a 2 rep, or a 3 rep max. And what becomes critical is going to be establishing what I would call a daily minimum and being conservative with your increases. Being conservative with increases. And the method that I use, I do not increase more than 5 pounds, ever. And sometimes it's okay to increase with microplates. And I don't ever increase off of a weight I've only hit one time for one rep. So let's put this in perspective. What does that mean? If you're going to come in and squat every day, and let's say your best training max right now is 400. Let's say that before you started this cycle of training, you've come in and you've hit 400 RPE 9, meaning you probably could have got 405, but the best you've done is 400. You might have even been able to get 410 if you really grind it out and psyched yourself up and screamed and slapped yourself. But you got 400 with good, perfect technique. That's your current training max. Your daily minimum might be 390 or 385. And what you need to understand is that you need to ramp up to that every day. So you'll probably come in, start with 135, do a triple or double, probably a triple, 225 for a triple, 315 for a double, 365 for a double, right? You ramp up. You know that 385 is what you would call your daily minimum. Because you know that even on a bad day, because 400 is a training max, not a true max, a training max, you can hit 385. You establish that as your baseline, and you commit that every day you're going to squat at least 385. You build up to that, and you see how it feels. Look at the bar speed. If you had to grind it all on the 385, or it felt really heavy, you stop there. You stop there. And on some days you might go ahead, since you know 400 is your best training max, you might build up with a 385 till you can do 3 reps with it. Right? Your daily minimum, when you get it to a 3 rep set, because you'll come in a few days. Let's say you come in the first day, it feels really good. You get a double. You're fatigued on Tuesday. You only do a single with it. You come in Wednesday and you crank out 3 reps really easy. Right? 3 reps really easy with your minimum. Well, if it feels easy, go ahead and try to add 5 pounds the next day. So instead of 385, you can do 390. Only do it for a single. And that's usually my recommendation. Anytime you increase weight, do 1 rep the first time you do the new weight. At least in this cycle. And I know your training max might have started at 400, but that was also fresh. You had probably rested 3 or 4 days since you squatted and came in and did that. So what you have to do is learn to adapt to the total fatigue and just keep getting stronger from there. And what you'll find when you do that, you'll probably get the 390 for a single the first day. Then come in and try the next day. You might be fatigued again. You might have to drop back down to your daily minimum for the 385. If not, if you feel strong, when you get to the 390, you might do it for a double. You might do it for a triple. When you get it for a triple, if you come in and you get to your daily minimum again and it feels light, go ahead and add 5 pounds again. So when your 390 gets to where you can do 3 reps, go ahead and try 395. And just ramp it up. And eventually you will get to a point to where you'll establish a new daily minimum. And I would say your daily minimum is usually going to be any time within the last month, any lift that you have hit for 3 reps, anything that you've hit for the 3 reps, and you knew you could have got a 4th. All right, that's going to be your daily minimum at that point. So you get to a point to where you can now do 400 for a triple. A couple weeks into this, you can do 400 for 3 reps. And it's an easy 3rd rep. Perfect technique, perfect bar speed on the 3rd rep. 400 becomes your new daily minimum. And you need to make sure that every day you come in, you ramp up and you hit 400. And if at any point you have a day to where 400 is unmanageable, you probably need a day off. You probably need to take the next day off from training, or again, if it continues long term, consider a deload. But the whole point is to conservatively increase and to keep increasing weight. Get to where you can do 2 or 3 good reps with any given weight consistently with a rep in the tank, add 5 pounds, and be conservative in those jumps. Always keep track of your daily minimum. And understand that days where you're more fatigued, if all you can hit is your daily minimum, that's okay. Stop with your daily minimum. And if you follow these sort of rules, what you're going to find with a system like this is that your squats are going to get very, very strong. You're going to get very strong doing this. And if you follow this stuff correctly and you keep your level of psychological arousal low, because remember, you're coming in and you're trying to hit these calm. Your goal isn't to come in and scream and get to a 450 squat and scream and yell and grind it. Your goal is to get calm, focus, get under the bar, deep breaths, walk it out, squat it. Just talk yourself up is fine. Right? Using mental imagery is fine. Using positive reinforcement is fine. That's all good. Those are things you should be doing. Using visualization. But none of this screaming, none of this yelling, no pre-workouts. These are calm maxes every day with a general upward trend. And that's how you do it without overtraining. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.